Okay, so welcome everyone. It looks like we have some more attendees who are just starting to come into our session. But I'd like to thank everyone so much for making the time to join us today for our Waterloo Engineering Information Session for international students. My name is Catherine Balzerzak-Wimmer, and I am the Graduate Recruitment Officer in the Faculty of Engineering here at the University of Waterloo, and I will be moderating the session today. I am pleased to be joined by our panelists, Sarah Landy, Manager of Graduate Operations in the Faculty of Engineering, Boon Koo, Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant and the Immigration Consulting Manager at Waterloo. And we're also joined by one of our current students, Martin Pape, PhD candidate in Electrical and Computer Engineering. So our panelists are looking forward to sharing with you information, helpful tips, and insight into what graduate studies is all about at Waterloo Engineering. During the next hour, we will cover topics such as admissions, finding a supervisor, funding your studies, obtaining a study permit, and learning what life is like in Canada. This session is being recorded, and a copy will be emailed to you as soon as it's ready. If at any time during the webinar you have a question for our panelists, please feel free to submit it using the Q&A button. You can also upvote other attendees' questions too using the thumbs up icon. After our panelists' presentations, we will use the remainder of the webinar time as an open Q&A session where our panelists will answer as many questions as time allows. We will also address questions that were submitted prior to the webinar. So thank you to everyone who did that as well. So before we get started today, we would like to know a little bit more about you. So if you open the Q&A button on your webinar screen, we would love for you to share with us the institution where you completed your undergraduate or your bachelor's degree. So it's a good practice for submitting the questions later. So just navigate over to the Q&A button and then type in the last institution you attended or the institution where you completed your undergrad degree. So we're looking forward to seeing where everyone is located today and welcoming you to our session. So as you finish submitting those locations to us, I'd like to share a little bit more information about Waterloo with you. So why Waterloo? The University of Waterloo is a leading global innovation hub. We are home to game-changing research and technology and unmatched entrepreneurial culture that together create solutions to tackle today's and tomorrow's challenges. Waterloo Engineering is ranked as one of the top 50 engineering schools in the world and is the #1 most innovative university in Canada. We are located along the Waterloo-Toronto corridor, home to the largest concentration of technology companies and startup activity in Canada. With over 15,000 tech companies, Waterloo region is proud to be one of the largest tech clusters in North America. We are home to some of Canada's greatest and largest tech companies, global think tanks, and innovation hubs, with brands like Google and Shopify calling Waterloo home. Waterloo Engineering is also home to 23 Canada Research Chairs, 19 University Research and Endowed Chairs, 8 NSERC Design and Industrial Research Chairs, and has over 86.6 million in external research funding and over 195 industry research partners. When it comes to graduate studies, there are over 150 major awards won by our graduate students, totaling over $2 million. And when it comes to career pathways of students who completed their engineering PhD at Waterloo, 59% chose to work in industry or entrepreneurship, while 41% went into academia. We are home to the largest student design center and are the only engineering faculty with a business school in North America, the Conrad School of Entrepreneurship and Business. At Waterloo, 100% of the ideas developed are owned by their creators. This is the core concept behind Waterloo's intellectual property rights policy number 73. Waterloo embraces the philosophy that providing incentive through intellectual property ownership is the best motivator to ensure that commercialization of research provides broad societal and economic benefit. The policy is a feature in attracting entrepreneurial-oriented faculty and graduate students who want to engage in commercial enterprise. The policy and the university's entrepreneurial culture has positioned Waterloo as a national leader in the transfer of ideas and technology into the private sector. So now that you've learned a little bit more about Waterloo, you may be curious about the programs we offer and the application process for international students. To cover that, I'd like to ask Sarah Landy, our Manager of Graduate Operations in the Faculty of Engineering, to share a bit more about this with you now. Sarah.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. So we're going to start by talking a little bit about our departments, programs, and research. So we have 8 departments in schools and 37 graduate degree programs. Those 8 departments schools consist of 6 departments listed here on our screen and 2 schools, the School of Architecture and, as Catherine mentioned, the Conrad School of Entrepreneurship and Business. Our 37 graduate degree programs include research-based programs such as the Master of Architecture, the Master of Applied Science, and the Doctor of Philosophy or PhD program. We also offer course-based professional programs such as our Masters of Engineering, Masters of Management Science, and Masters of Business, Entrepreneurship, and Technology programs. Engineering is home to 9 signature research clusters, which include things like water resources, additive manufacturing, connectivity networks, data analytics, and bioengineering. So let's talk a little bit about admissions and applications. So some of the top questions that we see from our international applicants are, do you offer course-based and research-based courses? And the answer to that is yes and no. So we do offer course-based courses, obviously, and we do offer courses to our research-based students as well. But those courses are actually the same courses. We don't separate our courses out by research-based students and course-based students. Everyone is enrolled together in the same coursework with the same faculty members doing the same work. Where can I find my program requirements? The best place to look at program requirements is the Graduate Studies Academic Calendar, and we'll make this link available to you in the email that follows this presentation. But basically what you would do is you would navigate down to the Faculty of Engineering, to the department you're interested in, and then to the program you're interested in. And the Graduate Studies Academic Calendar is going to list everything from admission requirements through to every single one of your degree requirements that you're going to need to successfully complete your program. So it is an excellent resource for all that kind of information. In terms of admission and English language proficiency requirements, like I said, you can find some admission information in the Graduate Studies Academic Calendar. But you can also check out the GSPA website for discovering your grad program, and that's going to outline things like the English language proficiency requirements that are required for each of our programs. So that is also an excellent resource to find that information. International admission equivalencies, we have, again, a fantastic website that's hosted by our Central Graduate Studies Office. And what it does is it offers international admission equivalencies for the MASC program, which is equivalent to a 75% at the University of Waterloo. So we realize that not every school or every institution operates on a 100% scale. So this is going to help you look and see what it is for your institution. So for example, someone coming from Iran, we would require a 15 out of 20 for admission to our MASC program. From India, we would need, for example, an 8 out of 10 or a first class standing. The one thing I will note is if you're interested in applying to a PhD program, we do have slightly higher requirements, and that is an 80% equivalency in most departments, except for ECE, which is an 83% equivalency. And those are posted on our website, but if you have more questions about that, we can help you if you want to email us or the department that you're interested in applying to, and we can help you navigate through those equivalencies at the PhD level. Also, we realize that some students come with international agreements and sponsorships whereby you're sponsored by what we call a third-party sponsor. So that might be the company you work for or a government institution such as your Ministry of Education. So we do allow these sponsorship letters to come, these sponsorship students to come. And the one thing we do require is what we call a preliminary sponsorship letter. And that's a letter that's going to tell us how much your funding is for, how long it's for, and what program it's for. And that's basically going to tell us that you have adequate funding to complete your studies here at the University of Waterloo, and you're not going to be left without funding for any period of time. There are some agencies, such as, for example, the China Scholarship Council, which have formal agreements with the University of Waterloo and don't require a preliminary funding letter. So if you have questions about that, I do recommend you reach out to your department specifically that you're interested in applying to, and they can help you navigate through that. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about funding and fees. So what I will say right off the bat is that all research-based students receive a guaranteed minimum funding. It doesn't matter whether you're international or domestic, everyone receives the same minimum funding guarantee. And that's $18,000 a year for master's MASC students and just over $24,500 for PhD students. In addition to that guaranteed minimum funding, research students can also be eligible for things like the International Doctoral Student Award, which is awarded to all international doctoral students, the International Master's Award of Excellence, which is awarded to select highly qualified international master's students. We also have provincial competitions like the Ontario Graduate Scholarship that you can apply for, federal awards like the Trudeau Foundation and Vanier Canada Graduate Scholarships. And then, of course, the university offers bursaries for things like parental leave, daycare, medical leave that can help you through your studies as well. The Central Graduate Studies Office at the university has a fantastic graduate funding and awards database where you can search for funding that might be available to you based on your status as an international student, based on the program you're in, all of these kinds of things. So financial need funding as well. So that's a great place to go and check out what funding options are available to you. So in terms of fees, there is an application fee to apply. It's a $125 non-refundable application fee per program. So that means, for example, if you're going to apply to the research-based master's program and the course-based master's program, you're looking at $125 per program or $250 total. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it's a per program fee. Additionally, there is, of course, tuition. So Student Financial Services has an interactive student fee estimator that'll allow you to receive estimates on your future tuition, and that'll help you calculate things like tuition, incidental fees if you're living in residence, your residence fees. And you can use this fee estimator, for example, if you come from a country where you need to pay fees before you can apply for a study permit, or you're applying for an educational loan. So this is a great resource for students in those situations and for anyone who's just kind of trying to gauge how much their studies are going to cost. In terms of living costs, which would be anything above and beyond tuition, the Central Graduate Studies Office has put together an estimated cost of living. And again, it's going to depend on your personal lifestyle. But by and large, you're looking at between $5,400 and $6,700 a term to live in addition to the cost of your tuition. So what makes a good application? For research-based students who are interested in research programs, you don't need a supervisor to apply, but you do need one to be accepted into a research-based program. So the way it works at the University of Waterloo is we don't bulk accept students into a research-based program and then assign them to a supervisor. What we do is the supervisor identifies a student that they want to work with and then tells us that they want to admit that student into the program. So it's really on the supervisor to admit the student into the research-based program. So it's really important that you know what kind of research that you're interested in and the research that the faculty members are doing so you can find someone who aligns with your personal interests. Begin contacting faculty members as soon as you can. The earlier, the better. Because it gives you time to build that relationship and have that communication with them. We have a Contact a Prospective Supervisor webpage, which is a fantastic webpage. It's got helpful tips, videos, and resources to help you navigate this really difficult task of contacting faculty members. And if possible, we always encourage you to meet with faculty members via video or phone call to get a real face-to-face conversation with them. Things can get lost in email, and having that one-on-one face-to-face is really important. In terms of references, all of our applications require references. So you're going to want to make sure that you give your references lots of notice and that they are willing to give you a good reference. And this is so important. Don't just ask someone for a reference, ask them for a good reference, because you want to make sure that that person has the time and the knowledge to provide you with a strong reference letter. You're going to want to choose an individual who knows your skills and experience and can clearly communicate your ability to succeed as a graduate student. In terms of academic references, we're looking for people with an academic appointment, someone who's taught you in a course or supervised your research. We don't want to see references from your fellow students, TAs, postdoctoral fellows. What we're really looking for is reference letters from faculty members, so associate professors, that kind of thing. In terms of professional references, very similarly, we want to see references from someone who has directly supervised you. We don't want to see references from your coworkers, from people you've supervised, or from a family member. It's got to be someone who can attest to your experience and the skills that you need to be successful in grad school. So your application should be done well in advance of the application deadline. So right now we're looking at a fall 2022 admission is open right now. The deadline is February 1st. You're going to want to apply as soon as possible, and your goal should be to have your application complete within 2 weeks of starting it. And that's going to give the department the maximum amount of time to share your application with the review committee, with prospective supervisors, with the people that will be making the decision on your admission. Good applications are detailed, they're without error, they show evidence that you've researched the program, that you understand what the program is about. They have up-to-date information. So for example, an up-to-date CV with no gaps in time on it. And spelling and grammar are so important. So applications that stand out to us are complete, they're well written, and they have strong references. So how do I apply? We've basically got 6 steps in the application process. So first, you're going to want to explore our programs. You're going to do that through our Central Graduate Studies webpage. It's got a list of every program we offer. You can look at admission requirements and LP scores, minimum funding, that kind of thing is all available there. You're going to want to review the admission requirements. So do you meet the minimum admission requirements? You're looking at that international equivalencies page. You're looking at LP scores, that kind of thing. Then you're going to look at the application documents. What do I need to apply? Do I need a CV? Do I need a portfolio? Do I need a supplementary statement of research? That kind of thing. So you're going to want to prepare those documents as well. If you're a research-based applicant, you're going to want to contact a supervisor. So like we said, you're going to want to do that as soon as possible around the time you're applying in order to have time to make those connections and build those relationships. You're going to want to apply, of course, obviously, through our electronic application process. It's very simple. It's very easy to do. Everything is done online. Once you've completed the online application, you then want to upload your documents. So you're going to be uploading your English language proficiency scores. You're going to be uploading your resume, your CV, all these additional things, a GRE score if it's required, that sort of thing. So I know you're all super excited now and you want to learn more. You're really excited. So I'm happy to tell you that you are invited to our departmental Ask Me Anything events that are happening on November 2nd to 4th. And basically what we're doing is we're taking an hour twice a day for 3 days to feature one of our departments. And you can go and you can attend the civil engineering Ask Me Anything event and ask specific questions about civil engineering programs, talk to civil engineering faculty members, students, and administrators, and find out more about the departments in depth from those people. So I strongly encourage you to register for these events for any department you're interested in, because it's a great way to get more specific knowledge. So I'm going to turn it over to our student, PhD candidate Martin Pape.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Martin. I'm a current PhD student candidate in electrical and computer engineering. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story overall and couple of comments that have come along the way, I guess. So I've been in Waterloo for a long time now. I've done my undergrad degree in Germany, in Karlsruhe. And in my third year, I decided I wanted to go on an exchange, and I wanted to improve my English. I was really bad at English in high school. It was a frightening experience, to be honest. And I was looking to maybe experience some new cultures, and it seemed like a challenge I wanted to take up. And through a lot of different things that happened, I ended up doing an exchange to Waterloo. And I met my supervisor there. I had to do an individual course project. I went to all the classes that I had been looking at taking, and I just approached the nicest, friendliest, and most interesting looking instructor at this time and asked him if he had a course project for me. And so he had, and I did this course project. And turns out that we got along well, and that he did things that I was really interested in, and he was interested or showed interest in maybe allowing me to come back to Waterloo for master's. And so in January 2013, that is something that I chose to do. That time, my objective was mostly, or the reason I came back to Waterloo was that it seemed like a very good opportunity for me to work with a supervisor like him. And it also was a topic that I was very interested in. So powertronics, sustainable energy, renewable energy, those kinds of things. And that was something that allowed me to focus on by going to Waterloo and work with Dr. Casarani. I also wanted to switch to a more research intense university like this one, and I wanted to sort of start new in my life again. A couple of months into my master's, I met my partner, and that was at a student bar. It worked. 2 years later, 2.5 years later, I finished my master's and decided to continue this work with my supervisor and pursue a PhD with him. And my main objective, besides knowing that I work well with him and that it works well and it's a good experience, I wanted to prove to myself that I can do independent and innovative research. And so that journey started in January 2016. I did my courses in the first year, and we did literature surveys and tried to find a research gap, a problem, something where I can be innovative, where I can do something meaningful that also aligns with my interests and with my talents and my passion. And that process was slow in the beginning, but it got off to a pretty good start, I think, eventually. Somewhere along the line in January 2017, I became a permanent resident of Canada. So I was able to switch from study permits to something that in fact usually is very similar in the rights and obligations as a Canadian citizen. About, what is that, 2 years later, my daughter was born December 2019. I went on a parental leave for a year. And in a few months, I will be looking at graduating from my PhD. So I have written my thesis. I'm currently going through all the paperwork, finding the committee and scheduling the defense. I'm also waiting for my Canadian citizenship to come through. It should hopefully come by the end of the year. And we're also currently talking about potentially continuing research with my supervisor and an industry collaboration as a postdoctoral fellow sometime next year, but that's still open. Next slide. In very broad terms, my experience as an international student has probably been one of the largest personal challenges that I have gone through. I have gained a lot in this. My life has become a lot richer, but I've also lost some because I have left the place that I grew up in. So what I found very enriching in the most is the cultural diversity here. It is and maybe Waterloo and Toronto are some of the most diverse places you can find in Canada. That's my speculation. But it is very easy to find and meet people that come from a different cultural background, to get to know how they think, how they work, have wonderful food, to expose yourself to something that you're not used to. And that can be challenging, but it can also be very enriching. Something that I discovered for myself is the outdoors. Canada is awesome for that. So hiking, camping, tenting, backcountry hiking, there's a lot of nature, there's a lot of space. Cycling, traveling, I've traveled a lot since I came here, is something that I would have not done as much in Germany, in the environment that I've been in. Something that I find enriching, it is something is active. You need energy for this. You need to invest in it, but you gain back. And that's an experience as a person living abroad, I think, is just that you're constantly faced with having to, or living in a society that is slightly different with their expectations, with their assumptions, with the norms and how people communicate than how you would intuitively do it. And that is something where I get a lot of self-reflection from, but it is also something that you bump into with issues or with miscommunications, or you miss things. And that's something that still happens to me now, 8 years, 9 years into this trip. It is something that I would say overall is very, very enriching, and it's something that I wouldn't want to miss. And I know people who have gone back to their home country, and they feel as a global citizen, they feel as an international person, and they miss this diversity and that they've experienced. Something that has been very enriching for me is that from my supervisor, I've received an enormous amount of freedom and trust in my work and my abilities. It has allowed me to learn and explore in a self-guided way, that I can go out and I can learn what I want to learn, and I can do it myself, and I can also shape that experience myself. And he has been a supportive mentor along this way, and that has been a very, very, very good experience for me. And the last thing I would highlight as something that stands out to me as enriching is that the experience teaching other students is something that I quite enjoy, and there have been a lot of opportunities to teach as a teaching assistant. And I've been able to refine my teaching techniques and engage with students. And again, if you approach it actively and you reach out and you form and shape and you go out and challenge yourself, there's a lot to gain from. And there's a lot to learn from. And I really enjoyed that experience, even though sometimes it was quite nerve-wracking. I still remember my first tutorial. Something that I find challenging, and I found challenging, is, especially at first, is feeling alone, being away from home, being away from your family, being away from the social network that you gave up by moving thousands of kilometers away. It was about a year into my experience. I remember it was January, February. It was a pretty cold winter. I looked out of my living room and all I saw was a snowbank. I had just come home from my annual visit. I was quite homesick. I was quite drained. It kind of hit me there. So that's something that has been difficult, but I've gone through it, and that's not something I'm dealing with anymore as much. I haven't seen my family due to COVID in a long time now. I really do miss them, but I wouldn't say that I'm lonely, and I wouldn't say I'm homesick. I am home here in Waterloo now. Something that I did find challenging at the university in the environment that I'm in, so electrical engineering and power electronics, that might apply to, more or less to others, is that teamwork isn't always the strongest thing in the environment that I have experienced. That might be different with different supervisors, that might be different with different departments, but that's something that I have experienced to be on the lower end of things. Collaboration and industry involvement is something that may or may be a very, very strong point, but just something to keep an eye on if that is something. you're very dependent on them, very thriving and very strongly. And the last thing that I would say that has been a bit of a challenge is the sense that you're constantly living in an environment that isn't the home you've grown up into. So a lot of intuitive assumptions, a lot of standards that you go through that give you that sense of home, that is gone. It's not the same sense of home that I have when living in a society that is just the same. It's a different sense of home. And for a few years, I think I wasn't really home anywhere. I was kind of home here and there. Now I'm home here. This is where I live in. And when I'm in Germany and I board a flight to Canada and I see a plane full of people with different colors of skin, with different features, with different languages, with that whole diversity that this country comes in, I get a sense of home, which is different from boarding a flight to Germany, which is very much like how I look and how I behave. So I've changed, and I think it has been a very good journey. Next slide, please. Adjusting to life in Canada, I think there have been a couple of questions. So this is what I came up with. First of all, Canadians are about the nicest and the most considerate people that I have met so far. I haven't traveled a lot in the world, but they are genuinely caring and they're considerate and nice on average. That is something that everyone says, and in a way that is very, very true. I have a lot of anecdotal stories that really prove that. At the same time, as a German, Germans are known to be direct, blunt, sometimes overly blunt maybe. Canadians aren't as much. They're a little bit more private, more indirect. And so that's maybe something that may give you a bit of an idea. I think Canada was settled by the British, and maybe there are some links still. The single most important thing that I would want to stress is that if you're looking for grad studies, the person that will have the biggest impact on your academic success and your academic happiness is your supervisor. They are your mentor, they're guider, but they're also your boss. They are the ones who decide where to go. They're the ones who will examine you. They're the ones who give you funding, and they're the ones who are your fellow on the path that is yours. So as much as you can, make sure or try to shoot for supervisors that you got along with, that resonates with how you work. And the same also goes to a certain extent with the research topic. That I think is the single biggest factor in supporting a happy or a successful academic experience in grad studies overall, or in North America, or at Waterloo. The second, I would say, is be active about your grad studies. If you know how you work well, what you want to do, what your desires are, as much as you can. You can't always do this, but as much as you can, go out and actively pursue them. Make proposals of how interests can come together such that the stuff you want to do is meaningful, can advance the research academic world, and you can have a positive experience. That hopefully gives you a good experience overall. And the last thing is go out. Canada has seasons. It has summer and it has winter, and it has about 1 week of fall and 1 week of spring. Go out, meet people, embrace the seasons. When it's cold, dress warm. There is a phrase that says, it's never too cold, you're just not wearing enough layers, or something like that. So just dress warmly, still go out, go skating, go skiing, go snowshoeing, meet your friends with a hot beverage or something. Do it. Go out with people. In the summer, it is beautiful here. Blue skies, 25, 30 degrees. Awesome. Not so much rain. Go hiking. I would go cycling personally, or whatever it is that you like doing. Just don't stay inside. Connect with people, meet them, get to know them. That is a good thing. And I think that's it. Do I have another slide? Oh, I have pictures. No, right. So about my research, just a bit of background. I'm into power electronics for renewable energy. For my master's, I built a collection of cables and wires. It's called an isolated microgrid test bed, which you can see on the right. So that is a picture of the corner in the lab that I got. When we started, this whole corner was basically empty. When I left the master's, this is almost all that was there. So I got a lot of freedom to design and build all of this, and it was a lot of fun. In the process of that, I had the support of a couple of undergrad research assistants that my supervisor hired for me that would help me build it. And there were a couple of colleagues in master's and PhD programs that would be colleagues, friends, fellows, and would also provide some feedback, some help, and would actually also develop some of those things. For my PhD, I moved away from experimental work. I did powertronics for offshore wind farms. It's a purely simulation-based and analytical study on improving the powertronics that are employed in offshore wind farms. And in the course of this, I was able to attend 3 conferences in Montreal, Vancouver, and Baltimore. I have 3 journal publications to my name by now. Been able to score a couple of awards on the way, and there's always smaller or little awards, smaller or bigger awards that you can apply to, and some of them you get and a lot of them you don't, but you still try. I've been able to take courses on how to teach effectively, and I've also been able to take courses at UW as well as other universities. In my case, I could take 2 courses at the University of Toronto. And I think there's one more slide. Oh yeah, pictures. So from the top left to the bottom right. I like cycling. So on the top left, that is me near Flasherton. That is Collingwood, if you want to pull up Google Maps. It's wonderful. The second picture from the left on the top is close to Hamilton. In fall, all the trees turn red. So you get this wonderful, colorful experience here. And it's about this time now, the trees are turning colorful again. It's very beautiful. The next picture on the top is that winter 2014, I think it was a lot of snow. We haven't had a winter like this in a long time, but this is a picture of the snowy day at the street that I lived in at the time. The picture on the top right is me sitting in a canoe in Killarney Provincial Park. It's about 800 kilometers north from Waterloo, 900 kilometers. It's very quiet, beautiful. Took a tent, canoed out to an island, stayed on that island for a day and canoed back. Bottom left, you will find a view on my desk, my office, and that little penguin there is from Chile, because we had a lot of exchange students and visiting scholars from a university in Chile. So it's one of those little reminding tokens that that I was given. It's very nice. On the bottom right, you will see me snowshoeing on the shores of Lake Huron. When the winters are cold, some of the Great Lakes freeze. And I wouldn't recommend going on the ice. That is up to you, but you can certainly snowshoe along the shore. It's a very interesting experience. And in the center, a nice sunset, because there's lots of nice sunsets here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Martin, for sharing. So if you have any questions about Martin, his experience here at Waterloo or graduate studies, what it's like as a student, feel free to drop those into the Q&A button. And now we are going to move on and introduce Boone, who's a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and she'll be sharing some information with you about study permits and arriving in Canada. Go ahead, Boone.
Hi, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'd like to start off by confirming that the information that I provided for this presentation is only valid for today, and so make sure that you check the IRCC webpage, because informations are being updated on a regularly basis. And you can also refer to IRCC COVID-19 International Student page and also UW FAQ page for international students for the most up-to-date information. Today, I'm going to be giving you 5 tips that must know about study permit application process and why UW is so successful in assisting our students in obtaining their study permit. When it comes to immigration, your success is our success. UW really cares about students being able to obtain the necessary documents to study in Canada and to maintain their status to the completion of their programs. So much so that we have our very own in-house professional regulated Canadian immigration consultants. They are not only licensed by the Government of Canada to consult, advise, and represent clients before the proceeding, but they are also highly knowledgeable and experienced in consulting in an institution setting. Who can get access to our service? Once you have accepted your offer, you can sign up for a virtual appointment with our consultants through our portal app. Our service is available every weekday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also send us an online inquiry via our web form, and one of our consultants will respond to your questions within 3 to 5 business days. We have a lot of resources on immigration for students, and you can access to some of them even before you accept your offer. We provide guidance to temporary residence applications. This includes study permit, co-op work permit applications, temporary resident visas, spousal open work permit, and post-graduation work permit. If you have accepted our offer, we provide guidance and recommendations on how to strengthen your application. But bear in mind that we don't represent you, we don't do the applications for you, and we don't submit your application. You will be the one who is responsible to prepare and submit the application yourself. We also provide information sessions on a variety of immigration topics, including permanent residencies, pathways, COVID updates, working in Canada policy, and so forth. We have reminder system to help you to set reminder for yourself to renew your documents before the expiry. We also issue a monthly e-newsletter to inform you of any immigration updates and programs available for international students. Before you accept our offer, you can also refer to our website. There are an extensive immigration content available to you 24/7. And finally, and probably the most helpful, is we have step-by-step application assistance video available 24/7 to ensure that you are not alone when going through the application process. My tip number 2 for you is start early. When is the best time to start preparing for your application? The process starts before you even accept your offer. You want to check your passport and make sure that it has a long validity. Renew your passport if you need to, as no permits will be issued beyond the validity of your passport. Ideally, you want the study permit to cover the entire period while you're studying. Sometimes this is not possible. In that case, we'll do the extension after you arrive in Canada. Make sure you check your passport, especially if this is going to be the first time that you'll be traveling with the passport. Ensure that all information on the passport is accurate, your name, the gender, the place, and date of birth. Then, while you are waiting for the offer, do your homework and read the requirements to apply for the study permit. Find out if you are eligible to apply for an expedited process under Student Direct Stream. If you are, what are the requirements? And if not, then what's the process for applying for the regular study permit application? You also want to decide if your family members will be traveling with you together at the same time, or they're going to be traveling with you, as well as whether or not what type of permits they will be required. Once you accept our offer, apply for the study permit as soon as possible. I almost wanted to say apply right away. Yeah, but I do know that it takes a lot of time to prepare the application. 2 reasons I'll give to you why it is so important to submit your study permit as soon as possible. First is because the processing time is very unpredictable. It changes all the time. It varies from one country to the other. While one country may be able to wrap up the process within 2 months, there are countries that may take up to 5 or 6 months to get your study permit. There are also a lot of steps that involves in the application for the officer to finalize your application. So in addition to assessing your financial ability, your family ties, your intent, and probability of success, you are also required to pass the biometrics, medical examination, and security checks. And all this takes a lot of time. Once you apply your study permit, what happens if your application is delayed or refused? To answer that question, I always want to say, well, start applying as soon as possible so that you have plenty of time and you know that you don't have to get really nervous when the term is starting and you're still waiting for your study permit. But regardless, if your application is refused, you can reapply. You want to make sure that you understand the main reasons for the refusal and address the concerns of the officer in your next application with sufficient justification and supporting documents. If your application is delayed, you can send in an inquiry through the web form, and if there's no response, you may have to work with your faculty and possibly ask for a deferral. Please note that we are unable to write to IRCC on your behalf relating to your application. Tip number 3, be curious. Do you remember those days when you were 2 years old, when your favorite words were why, how, when? And this is exactly the spirit that you need when you apply for your study permit. I'm going to go through one. The first question maybe you want to ask is, what is the application process like? Yeah. So first of all, you want to decide if you want to do an upfront medical. Yeah, medical can be done either you do it before the application or after you have submitted your application. If you do the upfront medical, make sure that it's done by an immigration panel physician. Once you have done your medical and you have prepared all the documents, you can submit the application online. After submitting the application online, sometimes within 1 or 2 days, and sometimes it may take up till about a week before you get a letter, which is what we call a biometrics instruction letter. Once you get the letter, you can use that letter and make an appointment and give your biometrics at a visa application center in your region. And then after a while, you wait. And if you get a passport request from IRCC, this is an indication that IRCC is ready to approve your application. Send in your passport and you will get your passport back with a temporary resident visa counterfoil on your passport. When you look at the coding, it's either coded as S1 or SW1. S1 stands for a visa issued to you based on a study permit application, or an SW1, which stands for an application of study permit application with co-op work permit. As soon as you receive your passport back, or maybe almost the same time, you should also receive a letter of introduction or a part of entry letter. This is essentially an approval letter confirming that your study permit has been approved. This is not your study permit. This is an approval letter. You want to print the letter and bring it with you to travel to Canada. The temporary resident visa that you have on your passport is going to facilitate your entry, while the study permit will allow you to study in Canada. At the airport, you will finally get your study permit. If you are from a country that is temporary resident visa exempt, you would be getting an ETA, which serve as the same purpose to allow you entry to Canada. Another question, can I include my family applications? Yeah, you can definitely combine your applications in one submission. In other words, everyone has to apply for the applications, but you can submit at the same time. Your spouse can either apply for as a visitor or as a worker. Your children, minor children, can either apply as a visitor or a student. And you can put all these 3 applications together in one submission. Just a couple of things that you may be interested to know is that your minor children can study at no cost as a visitor or a student. So they don't really need a study permit to study. Yeah, they can just simply use a visitor status to study at school. Your spouse would also be able to work if you apply for a spousal open work permit, and they can work in any occupation with any employers. Finally, this is one part that is very important because a lot of people ask me about this. Can I work while I'm studying? So in order to work while studying, you must ensure that number one, you have a valid study permit, and that study permit should have a proper working authorizations on it. When you get your study permit printed at the airport, you want to check for the conditions and the remarks on your study permit that says may accept employment if meeting Regulation 186. That is an authorization that allows you to work on and off campus. In order to work, you also have to maintain full-time status with the exception of your last term. And finally, you can only work once you have begun studying. To work, there are 2 documents that authorize you to work. The first one is your study permit. Like I've mentioned just before, that your study permit would authorize you to work on and off campus. Your co-op work permit will authorize you to perform co-op or internship work that is required in order for you to get your degree. So you must either be in a co-op program or your program has an optional internship or research option, and that you have chosen the internship option. So this co-op work permit is a special permit that is only applicable and only allows you to work in your co-op work. To summarize, on campus, if you have work authorization on your study permit, there is no need to apply for another type of work permit. It allows you to work on average of 10 hours on campus. Remember, you need to be a full-time student. And at the same time, it also allows you to work up to 20 hours off campus. You can combine both in that you work 10 hours on campus. In addition to that, another 20 hours off campus. Remember, these are all that this hours limit to that. 10 hours on campus, 20 hours on campus, and if you combine that, you can work up to 30 hours a week. There's pockets of what we call schedule breaks that you will be allowed to work, full-time, which is during the fall break, for example, in October, winter break in December, reading week in February, and in between terms after the examination period until before the start of the following terms. Now, a few things to remember about work. You cannot take a term off to work because graduate students do not have any scheduled breaks. Secondly, is you cannot use a co-op work permit to perform on and off campus work. I mentioned before, co-op work permit is only for co-op work or for mandatory internship work. You can work on and off campus during your co-op term. This means that if you are in a co-op program, you're working full-time on a co-op job Monday to Friday, and you still want to work Saturday and Sunday. These are the 2 days that you can work using your study permit, because this is an off-campus work. And then Monday to Friday, you'll be working full-time with a co-op work permit authorization for your co-op job. Tip number 4, plan ahead. So ahead, you're barely just starting the program, and I'm asking you to think about after graduation. So this is one very important work permit, that allows students to work after completing their program. So post-graduation work permit is an open work permit. You can work for any employer, anywhere in Canada, any type of job, no limit of hours. You are allowed to start working after submission of the application and while waiting for the decision. I always say that this post-graduation work permit is really your graduation gift. The government is dying to give this work permit to you. They know you're the cream of the crops. They want you to stay in Canada to work, and so much so that they tell you to start working as soon as you have submitted your application. You can only apply for the work permit after you complete your program, so not the end of the term, but once your degree met. And this is a permit that you can only apply once a lifetime. So you wanted to either apply it after your master, or if you're continuing with your PhD, you want to apply it after having your PhD degree. This program, even though it's very generous, it is also very strict with limited window for application, and as well, it's very, very strict with the requirement. You have to make sure that you maintain full-time and continuous enrollment throughout your studies. There's because of the strictness of this program, we offer info session on a monthly basis. So I would encourage that once you're admitted, you want to take advantage of our info session to learn more about post-graduation work permit. Post-graduation work permit also allow you to gain Canadian work experience, which can be a pathway for permanent residency in future. My final tip is to keep asking questions. Really be curious, really want to find out, read a lot, ask a lot. And on that note, I'm going to pass the time back to Catherine for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Boone. That was excellent information. So just as a reminder for everyone, the webinar today is being recorded, and you will receive a copy of the webinar. So you can go back to different sections and review the information shared. So we are just about at time today. So if your question was not addressed in the webinar today, feel free to send us an email, and I dropped the email address in the chat there at egso@uwaterloo.ca. We will be happy to answer your question and provide you additional resources. As well, remember, you can also sign up to attend our Department Ask Me Anything events. Those are happening on November 2nd through 4th. You'll have the opportunity to meet faculty members, current students, admissions experts from each of our departments to chat a little bit more in depth about the programs and research that's happening at Waterloo. So before we wrap up today, I would just like to ask each of our panelists just to come back on screen. And if you could share with the attendees here today your top piece of advice or one tip from your area of expertise for our international audience today. Sarah, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Martin, and we'll end with Boone. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, putting me on the spot, but I think my number one piece of advice, and I'm going to talk specifically about the application process here, is that making sure that your references are strong and complete when you're talking to referees, and that they're from the type of people that we want to see references from. I think what a lot of students don't necessarily realize is that we also use your application package to consider you automatically for certain entrance scholarships and awards and that kind of thing. So it is important that we also use these reference letters for this sort of purpose as well. So it's important that your reference letters are strong and from people who really know you and can give you a strong reference.
Wonderful. Great advice. Thank you, Sarah. All right, Martin, let's hear from you.
I think I've made that point already, so I'm just going to stress it. I've said before that the research topic or the direction that you're going in and the supervisor that you're going to work with is probably one of the biggest factors in your potential success and in your happiness in the grad studies, or the biggest drivers in that. So as much as you can, pay attention to that and try and find something that works for you, that resonates with whoever you are, and go after that primarily, I think. And then once you are in, define your project, do something that you burn for, and try to drive it actively as much as it makes sense for you and as much as you can. That's about it. And go out and go hiking.
Great advice. Thank you. All right, Boone.
All right, 3 things. Be prepared. Never too early. Yeah, never too early to prepare for your application. Be flexible because there's a lot of surprises along the way. And be patient. Yeah, because again, it's a long journey. Yeah, it can take up to 6 months. And finally, and the most important that I want you to know is we do really care. Yeah, so reach out to us. We will do our very best to help you.
Perfect. Excellent. A great note to end on. Thank you, Boone. All right, so that brings us to time today for our webinar. So again, the webinar is recorded. We're going to prepare that along with some links and resources to help you as you navigate through your decision in pursuing a graduate degree. So watch for an email from us coming in the next few days with additional resources to support you along with this recording. So thank you so much to our panelists for joining us today and sharing all of the information. And thank you as well to all of the attendees who made the time in your schedule to join us. I know we are spread across many different time zones today, so we do appreciate you coming on here live to meet with us. And a reminder too, if you're interested in learning more about our research and specific programs within our departments, please, we encourage you to sign up for our department Ask Me Anything sessions. These are happening on November 2nd through 4th. And we also have a graduate studies alumni panel happening on November 5th, where you can interact and hear from alumni from our programs about some of the career outcomes. So thank you again to everyone for attending and enjoy the rest of your day.